Hey, what's up, everybody? With this being Black History Month, I wanted to speak upon one of my favorite people that ever lived, and his name is Fred Hampton. The guy you see on the screen, that's Fred Hampton. Uh, Fred Hampton was he was the leader of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers, and he was no joke, man. And he was a young brother, man, a strong young alpha male brother, and he was fierce, man. He was fierce. He was no joke. In my opinion, he's the reason why a lot of things are in motion today. And he was killed back in 1969. And I think he's the reason why a lot of the things that are being done to us are in motion today. Because after they assassinated him, I really feel that they've been trying to prevent another Fred Hampton ever since. Fred Hampton was a young brother. Fred Hampton was 21 years old. And like I said, he was the leader of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers. 21 years old. The brother was smart. The brother was well spoken. The brother really didn't take no mess. The brother was about his business. He was about his people. And back in the 60s, if you know anything about the 60s, that's what they was trying to prevent. And his rise really was cut short because I really feel that they thought that he was the one. More than Malcolm, more than Martin. I really think that they thought that he was the one. And plus, he was in Chicago where, if you listen to Mr. Superboy 223, he'll tell you that Chicago has a different kind of racism. It's a special kind of racism, so they moved fast to take him out. But like I said, I think he's the reason why a lot of things are happening today, like, you know, the effemination of the young black man. I think that he's the reason why, one of the reasons why they shoot down these young black kids so young in the streets. I think he's one of the reasons why they don't properly educate our children, because they don't want another Fred Hampton on their hands. I think he's one of the reasons why they don't really teach black history in school, because they don't want another Fred Hampton. Like I said, I know there's Malcolm, I know there's Martin, and there's plenty others, but this brother was 21 years old. And like I said, I mean, if you do your research, if you go back and you read up on him, and you know, you watch his videos and his speeches, he was no joke. He was no joke, man. And they took him out. The government took him out. I think they thought that he was the one. That coupled with, like I said, Chicago had a special kind of racism back then. So, you know, those two things combined, they got rid of him. They had to get rid of him quick. And like I said, I think he's the reason why our young men have been targeted. I think he's the reason why, you know, the plan to get the fathers out of the household was thrown in there. I think he's one of the reasons for that. The last thing they want is another Fred Hampton. And compare Fred Hampton to your average 21-year-old now. Your average 21-year-old young man right now, compare him to Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was an alpha. Fred Hampton was a man. Fred Hampton was well spoken. Fred Hampton was educated. Fred Hampton cared about his people. The average 21-year-old now is emotional, effeminate. He's into fashion. He's into attention. You know what I'm saying? They're out in the streets just doing whatever. Fred Hampton wasn't your average 21-year-old. At least back then he was. Now, the average 21-year-old, nowhere near Fred Hampton. These new activists, most of them couldn't wash Fred Hampton's dishes. I'll tell you that right now. So, like I said, this is one of my favorite people right here. Fred Hampton, 21-year-old leader of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers. I came across two articles I wanted to read, and you know, we'll read these two articles and we'll talk about it a little bit after. Fred Hampton was born in Chicago on August 30th, 1948, and grew up in Maywood, a suburb of the city. A bright student, Hampton graduated from Proviso East High School in 1966 before enrolling at Triton Junior College, where he studied law. While a student, Hampton became active in the civil rights movement. See, that's another thing. Back then, our kids, they didn't look forward. They didn't have sports to look forward to after high school, after college. They didn't strive to be athletes and entertainers like they do now. You know what I mean? Nowadays, they steer you to that. They steer you to sports. They steer you to entertaining. This brother right here, after school, he got involved with the civil rights movement. But here we go. While a student, Hampton became active in the civil rights movement. He joined the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, and was appointed leader of the Youth Council of the organization's West Suburban branch. In October 1966, Bobby Seale and Huey Newton formed the Black Panther Party in Oakland, California. Initially formed to protect local communities from police brutality and racism, the Black Panthers eventually developed into a Marxist revolutionary group. The group also ran medical clinics and provided free food to school children. Other important members included Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, Bobby Hutton, and Eldridge Cleaver. Now that school program, free school food program, that's something that they do now, and the Black Panthers started that. You would never know that though, and you won't be told that. They would never tell you that, but the Black Panthers started that free school food program. Hampton founded the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party in November 1968. He immediately established a community service program. This included the provisions of free breakfast for school children and a medical clinic that did not charge patients for treatment. Hampton also taught political education classes and instigated a community control of police project. One of Hampton's greatest achievements was to persuade Chicago's most powerful street gangs to stop fighting against each other. In May 1969, Hampton led a press conference where he announced a non-aggression pact between the gangs and the formation of what he called a Rainbow Coalition, a multiracial alliance of Black, Puerto Rican, and poor youths. Later that year, Hampton was arrested and charged with stealing $71 worth of sweets, which he then allegedly gave away to local children. Hampton was initially convicted of the crime, but the decision was eventually overturned. The activities of the Black Panthers in Chicago came to the attention of J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI. Hoover described the Panthers as the greatest threat to the internal security of this country and urged the Chicago police to launch an all-out assault on the organization. In 1969, the Panther Party headquarters on West Monroe Street was raided 3 times and over 100 members were arrested. In early hours of December 4th, 1969, the Panther headquarters was raided by the police for the 4th time. The police later claimed that the Panthers opened fire and a shootout took place. During the next 10 minutes, Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were killed. Witnesses claim that Hampton was wounded in the shoulder and then executed by a shot to the head. The Panthers left alive, including Deborah Johnson, Hampton's girlfriend, who was 8 months pregnant at the time, were arrested and charged with attempting to murder the police. Afterwards, ballistic evidence revealed that only 1 bullet had been fired by the Panthers, whereas nearly 100 came from the police guns. After the resignation of President Nixon, the Senate Intelligence Committee conducted a wide-ranging investigation of America's intelligence services. Frank Church of Idaho, the chairman of the committee, revealed in April 1976 that William O'Neill, Hampton's bodyguard, was an FBI agent provocateur who, days before the raid, had delivered an apartment floor plan to the Bureau with an X marking Hampton's bed. So they knew exactly where he would be. That's why they came at night when they figured he'd be in the room asleep. And they just came in and executed him. And they got a brother to help. It's always a brother. You always can get a brother to help and do something like that. That shit is sad. Ballistic evidence showed that most bullets during the raid were aimed at Hampton's bedroom. Now, like I said, they knew that he would be the next one. They had to take him out. That's amazing how they got somebody to help them do it too. But that's always the case. I mean, it's been known through history that they've always had people infiltrate these groups and participate in helping with these guys being assassinated. And I have another article that I wanted to go through. Says a lot of the same things, but it has some extra things. We're going to start from here. On December 4th, 1969, a select unit of Chicago police officers executed a pre-dawn raid that left Illinois' Black Panther Party leaders Fred Hampton and Mark Clark dead and several other young Panthers wounded. The 7 survivors of the raid were arrested on fraudulent attempted murder charges. The officers who committed the execution were specifically assigned to Cook County State Attorney Edward Hanrahan. The claims of a shootout that were made by Hanrahan and his men were soon exposed as bald-faced lies. The physical evidence definitely established that the raiders fired nearly 100 shots at the sleeping Panthers, while only one shot could be linked to a Panther weapon. However, as painstakingly proved over the next 8 years, the false official claim of a violent confrontation was only one layer of a massive conspiracy that was also designed to cover up the central role of the Federal Bureau of Investigations and its COINTELPRO program in the murderous raid. Just after the raid that killed Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, the Minister of Defense for the Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers, Bobby Rush, declared that J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI were responsible for the raid. However, at that time, there was no hard proof. The first documentation that supported Rush's claim came in 1971, when activists broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and liberated a trove of FBI documents. These documents outline the FBI's super secret and highly illegal COINTELPRO program and its focus in the 1960s on the Black liberation movement and its leaders. Using Malcolm X as an example, Hoover directed all of the Bureau's offices to disrupt, misdirect, and otherwise neutralize African American organizations and leaders, including the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the Nation of Islam, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Stokely Carmichael, and H. Rap Brown. In Chicago, a major breakthrough came in 1973 when it was revealed that Chicago BPP Chief of Security William O'Neill was a paid informant for the FBI. We talked about him already. Lawyers at the People's Law Office, full disclosure. I was one of those lawyers. Had filed a civil rights lawsuit on behalf of the Hampton and Clark families and the raid survivors shortly after the raid, and they subpoenaed the Chicago FBI's files on O'Neill. While the FBI only produced a tiny fraction of the relevant files, an honest assistant U.S. attorney produced an FBI memorandum that included a detailed floor plan of the interior of Fred Hampton's apartment that specifically identified the bed on which Hampton slept. We talked about that already too. The memo on its face showed that the floor plan, together with other important information designed to be utilized in the police raid, was based on information communicated by O'Neill to his FBI control agent, and that the agent supplied this information to state's attorney Hanrahan office before the raid. So, I wonder how much this guy was paid for that, and like what they had on him for him to do something like that. I mean, you got snitches, you got people that do that kind of stuff, but most of the time they're facing something, they're facing a charge. But I mean, how can you set up somebody's execution? I mean, is it that serious? That's just a snake. The lawyers then focused on discovering more details about the FBI's involvement in the conspiracy. We sought the Chicago office's COINTELPRO file in order to establish a direct link between the FBI's illegal program and the raid on December 4th. At the same time, Idaho Senator Frank Church's Select Committee to Study Governmental Operations, which was created in the wake of the Watergate scandal, was investigating rampant abuses by all U.S. intelligence agencies, including the FBI. In late 1975, a church committee attorney informed the People's Law Office's lawyers that the committee had obtained several Chicago documents that definitely established the link. Armed with the content of the still secret documents, the lawyers were able to convince the judge, who had previously refused to compel the FBI to produce the Chicago COINTELPRO file, to order the FBI to do so. In the file that was subsequently produced were several documents that revealed the FBI's efforts to foment gang violence against Hampton and the Chicago Panthers, and one dated December 3rd, 1969, that claimed the impending raid as part of the COINTELPRO program. So they actually planned to go in and kill him. That's sick. And there's more stuff here. But we spoke about a lot of this, about the breakfast program for the children. Here's something. Among the government's documentation was O'Neill's control file. In it was yet another smoking gun. Memos to and from FBI headquarters and the Chicago office requesting and approving payment of a $300 bonus, 30 pieces of silver to reward O'Neill for his role in the raid. So he got $300, 30 pieces of silver. That's all it took for him to help bring down one of the most influential young brothers of our time. That's all it took. According to the memos, O'Neill's information was of tremendous value and, in the words of O'Neill's COINTELPRO supervisor, made the raid a success. So they gave him all the credit. That's sad. But yeah, like I said, Fred Hampton, he was, that's why it was important for them to take him out, because Fred Hampton was a serious brother, and there hasn't been another like him, and that's on purpose. They've done everything in their power to prevent another Fred Hampton. So, this is my Black History piece. It's about Fred Hampton. I'll be doing a few more this month. I won't be doing one every day, but I'll be putting a few out. So just stay tuned. Thanks for watching the video. If you can, please like, share, subscribe. Leave your comments and your opinions in the comment section. And we'll talk soon. All right, thanks. Peace.